I'm Leslie Burkus. I'm the Executive Director of the Urban and Community Forestry Society. You are here for this month's learning series, and we're really happy to have you here. And so that we have plenty of time to hear from Ian, I'm just going to do a real brief intro to Urban and Community Forestry Society. If you are a member, we really thank you for your membership. I just got back from the American Society of Association Executives Conference, and you are counting yourself among many people who join associations and societies to make your voice stronger, to learn more from your peers, and really thank you for doing that. If you're not a member, I hope that you'll join when the time is right, because our power grows when our membership grows, and we can speak more on your behalf and do more for our membership. So I wanted to start off by thanking our exclusive learning series partner, Bartlett Tree Experts. Together with Bartlett, we share the goal of raising the bar for urban forestry, and we thank them for their ongoing support of this learning series. And we thank all of our sponsors of the Urban and Community Forestry Society, including Davie Resource Group, EOCene, and of course our members. You guys are who really make this possible. It's all for you, and we thank you for paying your membership dues and being here with us. So we're going through a quick intro of the Urban and Community Forestry Society, or UCFS as we go by. Then we'll hear from Ian Hanau about this awesome new tree canopy tool that's able to help so many more people map the trees in their community and understand the resource that they have. Ian will walk through how to use it for planning, identifying high priority reforestation areas, and just getting insights from that nationwide tool. So I've heard Ian speak about it once, but it was kind of in the early days, and I'm really excited to hear an update from Ian as we go through here. We'll have time for Q&A at the end, and then the CEU credential form will be dropped into the chat at the end so that you'll be able to submit for ISA CEUs. And speaking of that, that will be done on your behalf by us. So again, we'll send you the form. We will submit those on your behalf. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared with you after. And as we really get going here, love for you to drop your name and where you're calling in from so we can hear where folks are coming in across the globe. If you're new to UCFS, our mission is to build the confidence, competence, and camaraderie of all professionals who manage trees and forests to create and sustain more livable communities. But breaking that down more, we are the professional membership home for the people who make or support a daily tree care decision. If you decide who, what, where, when, or how a tree goes in the ground, comes out of the ground, gets pruned, gets planned for, this is why we exist. We are your professional membership society. Just like doctors, nurses, and lawyers, landscape architects have a professional society, you as an urban forester have this as well. So we're so happy to be able to provide that for you and want to make it the best that we can for you all. Once you're a member, or if you're not, we offer many benefits for friends as well. We have our City Trees publication. We have our Arborist Exchange. Later this year, we're really excited. We're going to be launching our new and improved accreditation program for urban forestry programs. If you go to our website now, there's a little bit of sneak peek and high-level overview, but this will be able to give a stamp of approval to the work you're doing in your communities and say, we're top-notch, we're making it happen. So that'll be rolled out at the end of this year. Some specific things to keep your eye on. Our conference is coming up in November in Henderson, Nevada. So that's November 17th and 18th. Registration is open now. So that's Monday, Tuesday, and then it's followed by the Partners in Community Forestry Conference hosted by Arbor Day Foundation on the 19th and 20th. You need to be there if you haven't already signed up. If you've never been before, you get to be with your tree people. You get to commiserate, learn everything you need at that conference. So really hope you can join us in Henderson. And I know PlanIT Geo is a good sponsor of that event too, and we thank them for their support. And then the other thing coming up is the Municipal Forestry Institute. Jekyll Island, being held on Jekyll Island, that is the hotel on that screen. We're right on the beach. You want to be here to come have some respite from your work and then really learn and focus on your leadership development. So MFI is all about how you grow as a leader. You come with an idea for an action plan and you leave with some of the initial first steps of how to get it put into action. So if you've had this idea, it's kind of been percolating, but you've gotten pulled in the 150 directions that an urban forester get pulled into, come here. We'll focus with your peers. We'll have learning lessons from urban forestry professionals, and you'll go home with something really concrete, and you get going and get that work done in your community. So that's February 22nd to the 27th next year, and applications will close on the 19th. That's a little bit earlier than we've done it in the past, so don't delay. Definitely take a look and get your application in. Coming up for our learning process series is next month, Bartlett Tree Experts will do species diversity. The description's up on our website now. October is a youth engagement panel. Also in October is for those early career professionals, imagining that you're 1 year on the job. How do you really start making an impact? So that's part of our Career Compass series. November is the conference. And then in December, we'll be back with Bartlett and focusing on tree ordinances. So a lot coming up. And then we'll have 26 starting soon. So we'll get those posted as well. So again, thank you if you are a member. We really appreciate you. You are why we are here. We want to continue to be here for you to make you the best and most confident in the work that you do and speak on your behalf. If you're not a member, we hope that you'll join soon. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn this over to Ian. Ian, you ready to go?
Thanks, Leslie. You guys have a lot going on, obviously.
Yeah.
Can you see the screen? Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you, and yep, screen looks good.
Okay, terrific. Well, thanks everyone for spending some of your day today on this exciting project, this national initiative. There were a few questions as well submitted, so I'll make sure to try to address those. I think there were 4 or 5 questions that were submitted ahead of time, so we can hopefully cover those and then also get to them at the end if we need to. So again, my name is Ian Hanau. I'm based in Denver, Colorado area. And this project is a collaboration between a lot of organizations. So the United States Forest Service, the National Arbor Day Foundation, PlanIT Geo, NatureQuant, and Kappa Strategies. So I'm going to introduce their roles here in just a bit. But again, this is mapping the future of urban forests with the Urban Tree Canopy Assessment and Planning tool. We have a few learning objectives. These were, directly out of the invitation for today. So applying geographic information systems, GIS data and tools to assess and monitor urban forests and track canopy cover gains and losses over time. So hopefully you'll learn a lot about that. Identify priority areas for planting or for restoration, as Leslie mentioned, based on land cover information, canopy distribution, and environmental and social equity, which I'll show you that built into the tool. Throughout this, you'll see there's various ways to visualize canopy information, also like the impacts from development pressures, maybe transportation projects, residential tree loss, tree gains, that sort of thing. And this is really just, I guess it's organized both at a local and regional scale. So I'll talk about that as well. And, the information is for you to inform your strategies and hopefully to inform improved policy decisions, because for the first time, we have information for every single city and town across the whole country that can now be used for comparisons, for research purposes, where, other cities would say to me over the years, well, we have 20% tree cover. Is that good? Is that bad? How do we compare to other cities? And so this data will give you that and a whole lot more. So what I'm going to cover is just a quick background on the contract with the Forest Service and Arbor Day. I'll talk then about the scope of work, the deliverables, and the methods, as well as how you access this information. We have some recent updates. So kind of what Leslie was talking about, we actually had a sort of a phase 2 that kicked off for this national project about 4 or 5 months ago. And so I have a series of updates. So kind of think of what I present in like the first phase that we really finished about November-ish last year. And then we've been doing a variety of updates, which will be new to everyone today. One of those that's going to be very, very exciting is the incorporation of the first ever urban heat risk mapping across the entire country, or at least all urban areas. And so I'll talk about where this data is available and what goes into that. Then treecanopy.us is the tool that we built based on all the data from this. We are just very recently incorporating the heat data because this is all very new. And we do have a webinar coming up from the U.S. Forest Service on September 9th to keep a lookout for. We just pinned that down last week. So September 9th, we'll have a demo on this, but really going into more detail on the heat risk mapping with those partners. Okay, at the end, we'll have hopefully plenty of time for Q&A. So again, the background on the project, this was a contract between the U.S. Forest Service and the Arbor Day Foundation. And the goals, really, there were 2 main elements to these contracts: to build, support, and share first the treesatwork.org site, which hopefully many of you have been using actively for reporting IRA grants. So this tool, this site also is the host for all the data and resources from the National Canopy Assessment. So when I go into the scope of work and the deliverables, I'll talk about what you can download versus what's available to request through the website. And then, of course, the second contract, which is what I'm presenting today, about this first ever high resolution, geospatial analysis of urban forests and the tool. So just quickly again on the background on the partners, the Forest Service provided funding, overall vision and direction for this and the oversight, communications, and a whole lot more. Arbor Day Foundation, it's been great to work with them closely on this. We sort of all been kind of jointly owning the project management. And of course, they developed the treesatwork.org site. PlanIT Geo led basically all of the data analysis, the quality control, the data delivery, as well as the development of the software tool that I'll show you. And then again, this is new, is that Kappa Strategies and NatureQuant have been really leading partners here in the science and the modeling of urban heat. And so again, September 9th is when they're gonna join, and we'll go into much more detail on the methodologies and data availability. So and then EarthDefine is our partner that we work with exclusively on machine learning and AI for aerial and satellite and LiDAR for land cover classification. So just very, very quickly, if you're not familiar, PlanIT Geo, we are based in the US and operate globally. We focus on leadership in software, data solutions, and consulting services for mapping the world's urban forests for a greener future. And I can't think of any presentation that is more fitting than today for our tagline. So, okay, so let's just dive into the project. This is, again, a Forest Service funded remote sensing analysis of urban areas for land cover classification and mapping and assessment. And so what we do is we utilize high resolution imagery and LiDAR across the entire country at scale to map tree canopy cover change over 2 different time periods. And then what we call full land cover, and I'll show you all the details about this. And then we summarize or aggregate that information for different geographic scales or boundaries. So I'll walk you through that as well. So we delivered all of this data to the Arbor Day Foundation, and they brought it made available at Trees at Work. We developed the tool, of course, that I mentioned. And then the last part that we have is because there was a phase 2, we would have finished a national canopy report and story map about 8 months ago, but we decided that there was this phase 2 coming, and I'll explain what that is in just a little bit. But basically, we decided, well, there's no reason to do a report if we're going to have this expansion, because what we did was we were able to do this at even smaller towns across the country than we previously had scoped. So that's really exciting. So we not only brought these recent changes to smaller communities, but then we also incorporated this heat risk mapping. Okay, so just to start off kind of big picture, how can you use this information that I'm talking about today? So, of course, you can put the data into reports, tree canopy assessment reports with a ton of great visuals and statistics to really drive your policy and recommendations for your community. We develop a lot of fact sheets. That's a great way, maybe a one or 2 page infographic or fact sheet on the canopy cover in your community. Another way, of course, there's a lot of research. You can do a deeper analysis and sort of interpretation, right, about looking at demographics and social information, really understanding like where you have tree canopy in your community. All that information should drive your plans and your policies. So if you're writing a master plan, a management plan, if you want to work with parks and open space and other departments, organizations that are really committed to sustainability, right? This information should be really, really useful for you in that regard. And then finally, you can bring it into software tools, of course. So, you can bring this data into your own GIS environment. Maybe you have a tree inventory software, something along those lines. So really any web-based, mapping tool, you can incorporate this data into. Okay, so let's look at the scope of work, the coverage or the extent of the analysis. So first thing is, again, this is really the scope of work that we originally contracted for. And so, like I said, that there'll be some updates as I go through this that you'll see. So the original scope was to use all census urban areas across the US, which comes down to about the smallest towns was about 5,000 population. So that's pretty small. That still represented something like 90% of the US population. Again, we've recently extended that as what that second bullet is talking about. So we also included the US territories and protectorates. So just kind of a quick visual here. So if you go to the tool, you can pan over to Guam or other locations and see all kinds of information. Obviously, that's important to include. IRA dollars were available for territories. We had to come up with a little bit of a different methodology for some areas where they didn't have census data. So a few of those, like Guam, Samoa, Northern Mariana Islands had census data. Others, we had to come up with some methods. And so that's all documented and will be part of the report. Okay, so let's do a quick overview of the deliverables. I'm going to start with what you can download. So when you go to treesatwork.org, you can download the analysis of the land cover mapping. So this includes the summary level or aggregated GIS files. So if you're GIS savvy, we have vector data and raster data. Those are the two kinds of formats of GIS data. So these are the vector boundaries, and I'll show them on the next slide with all the land cover statistics. So the amount of impervious surface area, the amount of tree canopy, and so forth. And so we take the land cover data and we overlay these different geographic boundaries as well as historical tree canopy cover. So what I'll show you is over the past 5 years or 8 years, depending on the state, is how we mapped the tree canopy cover for different time periods. Sorry, a little background noise. So the licensing, these are fully downloadable and you can use in any GIS software that you would like to use, whether it's a desktop tool or a web-based tool. So again, this is the data you can go there right now and access. The other part you can do is you can go to the website to treesatwork.org and you could request to obtain basically the web-based mapping of the land cover data so that you can see this online and you can incorporate this into your own GIS environment. And I'll show you what this looks like in the tool. So when we get to the live demo, I'll show you, but basically these are URLs, they're web addresses to view the raster land cover data and incorporate that into your own GIS. Okay, so we have the nationwide software application that I talked about. Whoops, clicked the wrong one. Then we have the Canopy report and the story map. And so that's kind of the deliverables as a whole. And now let me just quickly show you the methods and the imagery that we use. So we have 60 centimeter USDA NAPE imagery available for the whole country. And so this is, it actually varies between 30 centimeter and 60 centimeter for consistency purposes. Because some states only have 60 centimeter, we chose to analyze every single state at 60 centimeter for consistency. Some states are moving towards 30 centimeter, which is really exciting. But basically all of our artificial intelligence was really about, had been focused on the 60 centimeter data. So we do this continuously. So this is actually something where like every single month, if you will, we are downloading the latest imagery from the USDA. And we're also collecting continuously LiDAR data from all over the country. So here, if you're not familiar with LiDAR data, it's three-dimensional information that can be collected either aerial or from sensors on, in vehicles or backpacks. And so that's what we're looking at here, where the trees are those white objects in the imagery because they're taller, whereas the black areas are the bare ground. So we do this continuously as a product. And so that was one of the ways we were able to do this so quickly and so cost effectively. I think I clicked the wrong button. I just wanted to mention the bottom right here. So the NAPE imagery goes back 15 years roughly. We worked with the Forest Service and talked through this and decided that we wanted to have all the analysis be 60 centimeter to 60 centimeter. It used to be 1 meter, and we decided that really wouldn't be ideal for the most consistent results. And so what we did was we chose the NAPE imagery about 5 to 7 years ago, roughly, and it varies per state. So sorry, I hit the wrong button again. Again, from left to right, we take the imagery, and then in the middle, we do the land cover classification. And then we have the assessment phase on the right. And so those are some of the geographies that you see, and that's what's available for download as well as in the software tool. Um, all right, so the 6 land cover classes that were included here are tree canopy, shrub cover, the like kind of herbaceous lowest level vegetation. So that'd be like all of your open space, your grass areas, and turf grass. And we separate out water, impervious surfaces, and all barren areas. So either bare soil or dry vegetation. So when I was talking earlier about the raster data, this is what's available as web mapping services, or the URLs, from Trees at Work. So this way you can open up your own GIS environment and have this data on screen and be able to use it for all sorts of display purposes. So the vector data sets that are available to download, we have what this graphic on the right is showing you. We took the state of Illinois, and this is exactly how the tool is organized. So keep in mind, this is a national baseline. So we wanted to be able to know all urban areas across an entire state, each individual urban area, and then all of the census tracts and census block groups. Now, one thing that's new in fact, this was I think one of the 4 or 5 questions that was submitted. One of the things that's new with the recent updates is we now incorporated the census places boundary. And these are not exactly city boundaries, but they're pretty darn close. So if you're looking at the data available right now at treesatwork.org, we are updating that to also include census places, which is really exciting because now we can do those comparisons sort of city to city, whereas before it was either urban areas or it was census tracts. Just thought that was worth mentioning. One example of how to use this information, some of you may recall that in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and generally speaking, a lot of Iowa was really affected by a very strong derecho storm, where here we can show the results of the national canopy data visually. So on the right here, I have in red, I have the areas of the previous tree cover mapping. So all of that red, as hard as it is to imagine, was all lost, destroyed and lost in the storm. And so this is just an example, sort of an extreme one, where what the data that has been calculated for every city in the country, every urban area, every census tract, et cetera, can show you what your gains or losses are in tree canopy. And so in this case, we have this 6-year period of change, and we calculate the loss or the gain in 2 different ways. Think of it as the absolute change. So it went from 25% to 16, so that's a change of 9. But on a relative basis, that's actually 1/3 of the canopy cover. And so, it's really dramatic when you look at the relative basis of the changes. So I want to show the data at a really detailed, zoomed in level. And so this just shows the precision of what is possible now. And so here, if I look, I have 2 different colors. And what I want to explain is that the green areas represent growth in tree cover. In this case, it's actually, this is Grand Junction, Colorado. So this is kind of a high mountain desert area. So we have a tremendous amount of tree growth. You can see even individual trees, that the red is the canopy from previous and the green is the latest canopy. So if it's like on the bottom right here, on the bottom right where my cursor is, the green areas are actually the individual tree growth, and we can get down. If we can see the tree, we can map the tree. And that's kind of the rule of thumb in terms of the smallest tree we can map, which was another question that one of you asked in the registration. So if I look here at the bottom again, these are new trees that were not picked up in the previous assessment, and now they are. But what I want to do on the next slide is I'm going to flip the order, and now the historic canopies underneath. So all of these areas in red are losses in canopy. So it really pops, and this is what we do for the entire country with this level of detail. Okay, so one of the other deliverables, of course, was the online tool. We know that not everybody is savvy with GIS tools and data and software. And so this tool, doesn't do everything that you can do, but we brought in, the majority of information that we can, and we provide really easy to use tools. It's also works just fine on your phone, so it's mobile friendly. And there's a settings to change to Spanish. So you can also just quickly create and share a map. So, if you had an example in your community or maybe some other city or that you want to share, you literally just, move the map around, change the settings, and then just click share. So very, very easy, relative to downloading the data and bringing it into your own GIS session. All right. So let me go into the recent updates and then I'll do the live demo. So the recent updates, the first one at the top here that I mentioned earlier is at first, the analysis came down to 5,000 population, and now it comes down to about 1,000 population using the census places data. So we're, well above 90% of all, all U.S. residents here are covered in this analysis, which is really, really amazing. The second one, which is shown on the screen at the bottom, is this multi-select tool. So this is not yet available in the live version, but I'll show you the version we're finishing in the next week. And so what you can do, this was a direct request from some of the users after our initial launch, is you can select multiple areas, and on the right, it's going to summarize or aggregate those. So this was something people said, I really want to pick a few areas and have the tool tell me what the canopy and canopy change is. Okay, and then the last one, the third one here, is the heat risk mapping from NatureQuant and Kappa. So I want to talk about that specifically. There's two data sets, and again, these will be available at treesatwork.org. I don't think they're there just yet. I think they will be very, very soon. But there's two. There's, again, a raster and a vector data set. The raster is 50 meter pixels. I will show you what this looks like in the tool. It's our development version. That's not all the final, has been pushed to I'll show you what I mean. But basically, I'll demonstrate the heat grid data as well as the summarized heat scores, which are a 1 through 10 score. So if you look on the right here, kind of bottom right, it says urban heat index, and there's a 2. So this would be, clicking on one of these areas and seeing what that score is. So let me just quickly speak to this. And again, much more detail will be provided on September 9th on the next webinar. So as many of you know, extreme heat events really are the most vulnerable human populations. And there's more deaths each year annually from heat than all other weather and natural hazards combined. I've heard that a few years ago and was pretty astounded, and I see that a lot. So pretty amazing, and also speaks to the benefits that urban forests can provide. So the Arbor Day Foundation contracted with NatureQuant and Kappa Strategies and partnered together to basically create an open source version of their urban heat index for all urban areas in the country. This identifies the high risk, sort of heat islands, if you will, as well as where you could mitigate this heat effects through via urban greening. And this was developed by combining some expertise from Kappa Strategies, which is really about this empirical ground-based measurements of ambient air temperature, with NatureQuant's location intelligence modeling that incorporates both natural and built environment or built elements. So they sort of took the best of both worlds and combined their methodologies. And this is, again, our first comprehensive urban heat index for the country. Okay, so yeah, they run this, like I said, through a machine learning and AI process to predict where and why heat islands are formed. So again, September 9th, there'll be a lot more information on that. So let me just take the easy part and show you a lot of beautiful visuals of these maps. So here's my hometown of Denver, Colorado. In the tool, again, I'll show you this live, but I can click on the display by. So what visually do I want to see? Do I want to look at impervious surface area? Do I want to look at canopy cover or historical canopy? And so we're in the process of adding this right now. It will be live for everybody very soon. And so here we're displaying by heat. If I take the next one, I've now took kind of the aggregated track level heat, the census track level, but I'm also kind of overlaying on the left that heat raster data. So now if I click one more time, jumped over to Raleigh, North Carolina. We can display the heat data, but then I can also display the raster heat data. So you can see those kind of pixelated areas here now. That's the raster view. And if I go back up, this is the summarized view at the census tract level. Pretty easy to use. I'm going to show screen here in just a second, and then you can get an idea of how to use all this in the tool. Let's see. Okay, just a couple quick updates. I mentioned earlier the National Canopy Assessment Report. That and a story map will be coming out probably either late September or October. So keep an eye on that announcement from treesatwork.org. And then again, that webinar that I mentioned on September 9th. And then we will have some ongoing improvements to the treecanopy.us tool. So with that said, why don't I go ahead and switch from the slides? And Leslie, how are we doing on time? Do we have any questions that look like
Nope, we're doing
I
great.
need to answer?
Nope, go ahead and switch over to the live version.
Okay, great. So basically what I was explaining earlier is this is the live version that you all have access to right now. And then this one is our development server. So those updates are not available just yet. So if you've never opened the tool, it will open to a national view. And I always like to demonstrate it this way because you'll realize that as you use the tool and you zoom in, the data will present whatever information is at that scale. So if you're at a city scale, that's what you're going to see. And what's kind of neat here is this is a good way to sort of look across the entire country at urban areas, and one that I like to look at. So here we're looking at, the darker green means that the cities in that state have higher canopy cover. So no surprise, Atlanta, North Carolina, Maryland, states like that are going to have higher tree canopy cover, whereas out in the West, Wyoming and Nevada and such are going to have lower tree canopy cover. But a really interesting visual is here. We can now look at aggregating or averaging all of the cities at the state level across the entire country and see which cities are generally, as an average, faring better than others. And so what this means is that Pennsylvania there on the far east is, is darker green. And therefore, let's go ahead and click on that. And I can see here in the information very, very quickly. Let's see here. So I've got about 4%, almost 4.5% of canopy cover increase. Where I'm sorry, Leslie, I'm picking on Iowa here, but likely in large part from the derecho, statewide urban areas have lost about 2% tree cover. Now again, that's the absolute change. Whereas they lost almost 10%. 8%, but they lost almost 10% of urban tree canopy cover. So this kind of information really hopefully can drive, impactful policy changes, at a national level. But again, this map has never been available until this project. So really kind of a culminating part of my career for sure. So again, you could do this for any of the data values. You could look at, the most impervious surface cover and things of that nature. But I'm going to switch this back. The other thing you can do is filter. So if I wanted to look at canopy, if I wanted to filter by canopy change, remember I'm displaying by one thing, but if I want to filter and say, show me the states, maybe I'm running a report and I want to show these are the states, that have lost the most canopy, or the opposite way, right? So these tools are very, very easy to use. And as you zoom in more, it will choose the geography. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and take a look. So again, you can click on, or what you can do is I'll just zoom in. So I'm going to zoom in here. I found some good examples in Bentonville, so I'm just going to pick that kind of randomly, but I was looking at that just before this. So let's go take Northwest Arkansas. All right, so you'll notice now I'm looking at census tracts. And so if I click here, I can expand this map and layer settings. And what this allows you to do, you can change your base map. So you can display the NAPE imagery, which is the aerial imagery. And you'll notice it's showing census tracts. But as I zoom in, let me just show you here. Turn that off. All right, let's just zoom in a bit. It'll automatically switch to the next geography. In this case, that is you'll notice on the left, it now says block groups. So this is, This has been the smallest geography, but again, the census places is going to be updating that very soon, which is exciting. So the other thing you can do is display the raster data. So like I said, this is available from the website to download. So you can turn on the full land cover data. So this is going to be your water, your bare soil, your tree canopy cover, which is the dark green, your like grass, agricultural, or low-lying vegetation is that brighter green. Or one of my probably favorite tool that you can have is I can show we, by the way, have accessibility standards like color blindness and such. And so we went through a really rigorous process with that. But I think highlighting where we've had canopy losses, knowing how long it takes us to get these back is really, really impactful. So one of the questions submitted was about storytelling and putting this data to use. I think it was from Missouri Relief, if I recall. But here we can take a look at anything that jumps out in purple is where we've lost canopy. So here's a highway corridor. So I can switch from roads, and now I can show the NAPE imagery. And so if somebody says, oh, I don't think we've lost that much tree cover, or I think we're doing pretty well. Well, you can pull up this tool and say, well, I'm going to show you some of the areas that really jump out to me. And so here we can see that highway corridor, definitely impacted tree cover previously. So there's a few examples. Let me go ahead and turn this off, and I'm going to zoom back out. I'm going to show you the plan tool. So let me zoom out here. Give me 1 second. All right. So if I go to the plan tool, this is really for prioritizing areas for expanding canopy. So what this does is the color coding is set differently. And let me zoom in. Let's take a look. We'll now be at the block level. So we have, let's see here. All right, we can filter the map. So I can say, show me areas that are of particularly high priority. And I can do that based on different criteria. So on the left are these different criteria. I'll zoom back out. We can see that, if improving canopy is the #1 goal, that's what I can do. However, if you really want to look at planting opportunities, and maybe you want to look at heat, or you want to look at vulnerable populations. So if heat was not my variable, I can do this, and I can see where are the highest priority areas. And then if I want to incorporate tree canopy cover, so maybe they have a fair bit of canopy cover, and maybe the populations and the health impacts, are not as important, but maybe heat is my most important. You can see instantly how much the map changed. And so now I can scroll here. So let's say you're applying for a grant and you want to look, I think a lot of federal initiatives are going to be around mitigating urban heat. And so this would be a great way to use this tool and this data to say, let me show you where we're going to invest, where we have, certain demographics, certain canopy information, certain planting opportunity, and heat islands. So, you could take every one of these out of the equation, and now you're really just focused on just heat, which of course is this downtown corridor. Okay, I think that's most of what I wanted to show. You can, like I said earlier, you can click here and you can just create a quick link. So now I could just paste that into a report or an email. You can go to the settings and change to Spanish. You could just some other basic things like the legend. But what I want to show you that's not yet available that we are building is the heat data. So this will be available very soon. So the other one I showed you had these 3 toggles, and now you have this 4th one for heat. And let's turn this off. So if you recall, when I was showing the display by, so this is the ways you can display the data, we now have a heat option with an associated color. So that's really exciting. I'll turn the legend back on. The only other thing really is just this multi-select. So we had users say we want to select 2 or 3 or 4 areas and then get the aggregated statistics. So that now works as well. So I can turn that on or off. And if I have it on, I can click one area. So it says 172 acres total, 83 acres of tree cover. I can click the next one and I can see how it adds that up and then re-averages it. So you may have development projects. Maybe you have like some other kind of neighborhood plan. something along those lines where it would be really helpful to have that. So I think, Leslie, that is most of what I wanted to show. Hopefully I didn't miss anything, and then we have lots of time for Q&A.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Really appreciate that. This is amazing updates, amazing tool to start with, and then seeing all these updates is really wonderful. And yes, thanks for calling out Iowa as it should be. I'm gonna have to go up my game and start like guerrilla planting trees in the middle of cornfields and see how the farmers like me after that. But I saw some multiple thumbs up and smiley faces about the extended or the expanded coverage. So thanks so much for working on that. That multi-select tool is really awesome. And then as you were prefacing there at the end, for the folks that live in the US with changing priorities, heat seems to be something we're hearing from our policy initiatives we follow, that's likely something that will trigger with the new administration and might be a way to help frame some of the work you were doing originally, but called around heat. And then agroforestry seems to be something that's popping up as another possible priority as well that perhaps the tool could help with. So as we get started here, Ian, I see a few questions in the chat, and then please keep putting them in there or use the Q&A features. And we'll go to the top of the hour. If we need to stay on a little bit after, you can drop off, but we'll stay on here. So will states with fewer urban tracts that are included in the data appear to have less total tree cover statewide than states like Pennsylvania with more urban tracts when you see the level national viewer? Does that make sense to you, Ian? Do you see that question from Melissa?
Sorry, no, I gotta how do I do this? There we go. All right, let me go to the chat with you. Well, so the census data is 100% driven by population density. So if you're the size of the tracts and the number of the tracts is purely a driver, it's just driven purely by population. I don't know if that answers the question necessarily, but so we certainly shouldn't be missing any data that, we downloaded all of this from the US Census for the analysis.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, Melissa, we'll have you reframe that if that didn't. And then Ian, we're seeing like a weird like meta. We're seeing us also on your screen. So maybe either stop sharing or go back to your other screen. Yeah.
You're totally right. Stop sharing. No, thank you. Jeez.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay. From Leslie Gover, historical data, can we pull data prior to 2014? They've had lots of changes in their community from 2008 until now. Is there a way to capture tree data prior to 2008?
Prior to 2008, there's no NAPE imagery. There's no USDA programs that were good quality. There was one, but it was like film. It was not even digital sensors. It was film, and so that doesn't really, even AI doesn't do a great job with that imagery. I would definitely recommend high resolution satellite imagery. So like the QuickBird satellite is one that was around at that time that would be really good. And it's 60 centimeter resolution. So I did a lot of my early days Canopy cover assessments using that satellite imagery.
Thanks, Ian. From Sam, is there a plan and funding to track canopy change into the future with this tool?
We get that question every time. I should have it. I should have an FAQ slide. The Forest Service has said several times that it is their intention. Obviously, there are very significant changes right now, at the federal level. So it's just going to be driven by budget. I was able to reach out to EPA and give a presentation like this to a couple hundred people with the green infrastructure and the EPA. And so I think reaching out to other agencies, right? And just demonstrating the need and the use of this information. Obviously, the more that we can do that, the more likely it is that there will be funding to redo and, continue to improve this. So right now it's those two time periods. We will be hosting the tool for as a total of a 5-year period. So that's not going away anytime soon. And hopefully we'll always be there and hopefully get updated with new imagery. So there is new, like 2025 right now, USDA NAPE imagery is being flown. There's actually a lot of states, maybe half of them at 30 centimeter resolution, which is really exciting. So hopefully we'll have cities where we have this imagery at 30 centimeter, which is it's 4 times the resolution than you get at 60 centimeter. So hopefully that'll continue. But again, that's also a federal program. So.
And I think you're just answering this, but just make sure from Levi, the underlying data will continue to be collected. And how often do you think this data will be updated? So is there any more?
Yeah, so it's really going to depend on funding.
Yeah.
And hopefully some, interagency kind of partnerships, because I think it would be fantastic to have a group like EPA, invest in this. So.
Yeah. And this is kind of related. If the census tracts change with population over time, how will we be able to show change in standardized, more localized areas?
Right, right. No, it's a great question. I mean, we use the 2020 census data for this because it does change based on density and demographics. So I think the goal would be to one of the things we do as a commonality is, let's say that there's changes in 5 years from now to the census data, and we do use this. What we would do is use that and then reanalyze the same pixels, the same land cover classification previously, but with the new boundaries, and that way those are now apples to apples. So that's what we do. Like if we work with an individual city, and let's say like a good example would be land use, so they have residential, commercial, park, industrial, et cetera. That obviously changes, often. And so what we'll do is we'll take the newest, and we'll if we want to look at changes, because you sort of have, right, you have two different changes that are happening: the land cover changes and the land use changes. So anyway, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's what we would do is do the newest analysis, the new land cover. We would take the prior one, but we would use the newest boundaries, and that way we can show the change that way. So.
Okay. Can you remind what year the current and historical data is from?
Yeah, so it's going to depend per state. I can go to the slide real quick, but basically, let me go click on that real quick. One nice thing is in the tool, when you click on any boundary, it could be state level, it could be tract level, doesn't matter. It will tell you what year for the current and the historic.
Okay.
So that's
So it
the
varies by
easiest.
location. Yeah. Okay. I think that's better than best
Exactly.
for folks
It
to look
varies
at.
by it varies by state. Yeah. So, but when you click on them, they will tell you what it is. Plus, we'll have that in the report, of course. So I think I'm just looking at the slide. I'm not sharing screen, but everything was 2022 and 2023 for the most current. And then Utah, I believe, was the only state where we had to use 2021. They just didn't get a new update. So it's almost every other year for just about every state. And so for whatever reason, Utah didn't get that update. So and then Alaska and Pacific Islands, there is no NAPE imagery. And so the Forest Service had an interagency agreement, and we were able to get high resolution, like 50 centimeter satellite imagery for Alaska and Pacific Islands. So they were the only ones we used satellite imagery, but we still used LiDAR.
Okay. We have a question about, I think, could we set a boundary on the map and then pull the applicable census tracts into the filter I set? Could we export that census tracts into Excel? So first, can you set your own boundary?
Yeah, that has come up. That did come up in some of our like project meetings. We did not have a tool built to do that immediately. It is definitely something we could do. So I think really it's going to be up to the Forest Service and Arbor Day to tell us, if they want to do something new and different. So the multi-select was the closest equivalent of that, and it was basically a lot more doable for us. But there are tools where you can draw a boundary and have it basically calculate the pixels and tell you right for that specific area. But no, that's currently not a tool in the software. So.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is part of it, but the question was here, could we export the census tracts into Excel?
That answer is yes. So the data sets that are downloadable are those vector format boundaries. So it's census tracts, census block groups. It'll now be the census places, which is the municipalities. One other small thing, it's a very, very minute detail, but when we brought the analysis down to 1,000 population towns, some of those only have like 2 census tracts or 2 census blocks. So we actually use the census, what they call the census block level, instead of the block groups, which are bigger. So in the tool, you'll notice if it's a really small town, once you zoom all the way in, it'll actually be at the block level. So.
Okay. Okay. So in the Q&A section, the question is, do you have funding to teach how to interpret this data, such as modifying plans? If so, when? And my main guess is, well, you go ahead, maybe you do, but also the question might be like some additional help, because you've really built a really awesome tool to help folks, but people like me might be thinking, oh, I kind of get it, but I still don't know how to tell the story.
Sure. No, I mean, that's a great question. It's not something we thought of. I am sure that if you reached out to either Forest Service, Arbor Day, I mean, I would go to treesatwork.org and bring that up and see what resources are available. Because one of the things we could do is, I mean, just on the fly, but we could host a session like this, but more hands-on, maybe more kind of interactive and really kind of applied. And that way, we could directly answer the kind of questions that people have. And, this is exactly what I want to do. Can I do it and how? And then show. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you could certainly contact us. We'd be happy to talk to you. We might be able to tell you something quickly, but there's no funding set aside for that kind of level of training or sort of how do I do this?
Yeah.
But I think there are some options out there. So.
Well, we got one comment. Yes, hands-on training with 4 exclamation points. So I think we need to do it, Ian. 4 of them.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I honestly, I think I would submit that through treesatwork.org. I think it's the best way to go. And then, yeah, I'm sure we'd be happy to talk. So.
Okay. A question about the webinar in September. Is there anyone, do you have the link, or maybe you've got a PlanIT Geo friend, or we'll follow up with an email too. We can include that link for the September webinar. That might be the best way. I just verbally process with you. We can include it unless you have it really close.
Yeah, no, I think the date was just picked late last week. I don't, okay. I think I have a block on my calendar. That's about it. But yeah, okay. it'll go through Arbor Day Foundation. Would be happy to share that with you, Leslie, and then you can share it, with your members and such.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, it should not be hard to find, and it will be on the Trees at Work website at some point. So.
Okay. Well, we have 9 minutes left. I see one more question here, but I think it might require you going back to the live version. So as we get into the top of the hour, we'll keep going with questions. In a few minutes, Carla is going to put the link for the CEU form in the chat. So if you're seeking ISA CEUs, look out for that link in the chat. But the question here, Ian, from the Q&A section, the tutorial on the app is pretty basic. Can you quickly explain how to use the slider bars on the tool?
Yeah, sure. And let me share screen because I think it usually helps. All right. So let's go to the current tool. Let me go to here. All right, we're going to come back to Fayetteville, Arkansas. So, yep, we have a couple of different slider bars. So think of the first one here as just what are you color coding whatever the geography is, whatever the polygon boundary is. In this case, I'm zoomed in enough where I'm showing the census tracts. So again, this is the one where if I want to look at canopy change, there hasn't been much canopy change. In fact, I have to scroll up to see more where they've had more losses in canopy. So that's kind of the first step. But again, let's say, you want to look at the current canopy distribution, but you want to filter by how much change there has been. So here we're able to say, where have we lost the most canopy and where do we have the most gains? So basically what you're doing, I gotta go really slow. There we go. So what we're looking at are which have the biggest increases in canopy, and then as you see here, it goes negative. So if I want to color code it by that same value, I can come here. So it's just a way to basically use 2 different pieces of information at the same time in the tool. And then if you want to filter so think of the first filter is your tree canopy, your previous tree canopy, and then the change. And then the next one is identical, but it's by all the land cover classes. So it's really just an extension. So one is filtered by the canopy, the types of canopy information, and one is filtering by the individual land cover. So again, let's just say that impervious surface area is something that you want to look for where we have the highest impervious surface cover. That's something else you can do. It's been aggregated from the data basically. So here I'm drilling down to those areas, and I can display based on impervious surface area. And again, if that background map, see how it's gray on gray, what I would do is I would come over to roads and I would switch it to here, and now it's going to pop, it's going to stand out much more. Sorry, that's drawing very slowly for some reason.
Okay.
Still thinking. Anyway, but that's, sorry, it's drawing very, very slowly for some reason here. I'm just going to stop that. Okay, so that's one example. And then if I minimize this, I'm also at the bottom left, there's this reset button, so I can click there. Now it just shows everything again. So I'm going to zoom in a bit more so we can go to the block group level, which I think is a bit more useful, especially for kind of some of the filtering and color coding. Give me a second. Yep, I don't know, it was pretty subtle, but I could see that where it switches from the track level to this. So, and again, all of this data, everything I'm doing right now, you just is available and to download and use it in your own GIS or with like a GIS department, for example. But yeah, so now we have, instead of the urban areas and the tracks, now we have tracks and block groups because I zoomed in more. I'm just going to minimize this. And so again, I can display by, if I wanted to look for planting opportunity, I can see here of areas. Let me go to, so if I wanted to look for planting opportunity, I would just choose display by the herbaceous land cover and filter by the herbaceous land cover. So where do I have, the most opportunity across the city for establishing more canopy cover in kind of the low hanging fruit, if you will. So I think I'll leave it there. I think that's maybe hopefully a quick example of pick what you want to color code by, and then pick what you want to filter by.
Yeah, and definitely go in and play around. See how it works.
Play around, and then if you get messed up, hit the reset button.
There you go.
And then again, if you switch here, you have to be zoomed in enough at the city level. Once you are, you can go to the plan tool. It has a reset button as well. In fact, it resets to what I had last time. So
okay.
Yeah, I think we're nearing time. So
yes, we are. We're getting to the top of the hour here. Carla has dropped in the form for the CEUs. If you're seeking ISA CEUs, that is there right now in the chat. So please head over there and you can fill out your information and we will submit those on your behalf. Again, this session was recorded, and so we will reshare. We'll also send the link out to the webinar and a direct link to the Tree Canopy website and Trees at Work. And like we were just saying, play around. If you're fortunate to have a GIS department in your city, or maybe within your nonprofit that can help with this, great to have them dig into this more. And then we'll chat a little bit more about that hands-on session. If it's something that UCFS can help out with, we would love to, or perhaps it'll show up somewhere else, but we'll make sure you all know about it. So Ian, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's awesome to see everything you've done. The work that your team has done is incredible. We thank you for that. And thanks for continuing to improve it as well. So with that, we'll end today's session. We hope to see you in September. And thanks for your time, everybody. Bye.